the hope. And I love this title of this meeting tonight, Rising Hope. So hope is still alive. I will tell you a bit about our story uh, tonight, or in this morning. Sorry about that. So I will share my screen, and okay. So the story of the Tent of Nations is actually the story of a struggle for justice. Many of you, of course, have been to Palestine years back. This is done from the beginning. I'm sorry about that. Just, oops. And many of you have been to the country and know the conflict and know the difficult situation that we are facing as Palestinians. And many of you also know this map where the country before 1947, how was the majority of the population were Palestinians, and then the partition plan, and then 1967, and in the year after the Oslo agreements, where the Palestinian territories are shrinking and also being controlled by the Israeli military authorities. Of course, we are not doing a political meeting tonight, but I want to introduce to you some of the challenges that we are facing today, specifically about the political context. Of course, you know that the peace process had been stopped for a couple of years, and no negotiations are happening between Palestinians and Israelis about peace and about land. Of course, the Palestinians stopped the negotiations because of the continuation of the settlements activities in the West Bank, building new homes in the settlements, confiscating land, and also building new roads that connect settlements with each other. So with those facts on the ground, it was very difficult to continue with the negotiations. And in this situation today, where also the world is not saying anything, and the Arab countries are normalizing slowly, some of them are normalizing their relationship with Israel, and even um, buying products from settlements. So this is making the situation more difficult for us. At the same time, we as Palestinians are divided, and we miss a strong leadership at the moment that could unite the Palestinians behind a vision. So many of us today feel like we are in a difficult situation. um, we are still waiting. We are still waiting for something to change. But the lack of vision and the lack of a working plan is not permitting us to move forward. Of course, the political climate is not good for us, and the political wind is not blowing to our favor. At the same time, we are facing also the pandemic with lack of resources. Of course, like you know, that the health system in the West Bank, and especially now in Gaza, is very difficult. But also the Corona had and has a big impact on our lives socially, and especially we are living in a situation where we are living close to each other, families, and it's now being difficult to visit family members and even to move around. Today and yesterday we had a closure for 2 days a week, but also I think next week this is going to change, and maybe we will have, or we will face the third wave, or we are facing right now the third wave of the pandemic, and maybe we are going to another closure or lockdown for another 2 or 3 weeks. So it is sad that we are celebrating a different Christmas this year, not as usual. But also, and I think it's important, like, to focus not on the celebrations, but to focus on the light. So Jesus was born in Bethlehem, in this little town of Bethlehem, and he is bringing light, and he is bringing hope for all of us, for the whole world. So we, in this very difficult situation, which we are facing as Palestinians in general, but also as a Palestinian family in particular, with land confiscation, um, you know that the biggest obstacle that we are facing right now, and the biggest obstacle for peace, is actually the expansion of the settlements and the building of new ones. And after the peace agreements, as you already know, the Palestinian areas were divided into three zones: Area A, B, and C. And then you know that the majority of the land in the occupied territories is still under Israeli control, over 60%. And on this 60% of the West Bank, more settlements are being built, the wall, bypass roads, which are also making it difficult for Palestinians to move to move from one city to another without facing checkpoints and roadblocks. So this situation, of course, is making it difficult, if not impossible, for the Palestinians one day to establish an independent state within the occupied territories of 1967. So this is the general situation that we are facing today. Of course, like, land confiscation is the biggest obstacle for us all, because we see on daily basis how land is being taken, how settlers are attacking local farmers, and how the life for the Palestinians is becoming more difficult and restricted. And we as a family, as many other Palestinian
See this
families,
quickly. Mary, come and
are
see this.
facing this issue of land confiscation.
Quick.
Maybe some of you already have visited the farm, the Tent of Nations. Maybe for many of you is our story familiar. But I will tell you a bit about our context. We own a piece of land located southwest of Bethlehem, on a hill that is surrounded by five Israeli Jewish settlements. And maybe the word settlement is wrong. They are growing to become big cities. So the farm is located on a hilltop, and the biggest settlement that are close to our farm is called Bitar Elite, which has about 60,000 people living there. Of course, the settlements are being built, or most of them are being built in the 80s. So, which means a generation of children was born there, grew up there. So it's becoming their home. So with those facts on the ground, it is becoming too difficult and too complicated one day to have a two states side by side, like a Palestinian and Israeli state, because the let us say the two states, or the solution of having a two states or two-state solution is becoming more difficult and difficult with the facts that we are facing on the ground. So back to our story, when we talk about the land, the farm, we are talking about 100 acres of land that was bought by my family, my grand family, in almost 100, more than 100 years ago. And we are lucky that my grandfather, my father and uncle, they registered the land. It was unusual at that time for people, for Palestinians to register land in order not to pay property taxes. But we got documents, and we also have documentations that the family paid taxes. And this was unusual. And the second unusual thing the family did, they moved and lived on the farm in a cave. So they moved from Bethlehem and they decided to create a new existence on the farm. And my grandfather was a spiritual man, so he started to educate his children the same way. So when they lived in a cave, they end every day their work with a prayer. And so this is how my father and uncle grew up, connected with the land. In Things were changed for us in the of course later in the 50s, 60s, and 70s and 80s. My father died in 1976, and we as children we continued with the same vision. My uncle died in 1987, and again we continued also following his path. In 1991, the Israeli authorities, military authorities, declared the farm as state land. State land means the land has no owner, because they consider the land that has no documentation, they say that it belongs to the state. So since we have documents from from many years ago, from the Ottoman, English, Jordanians, and Israelis, we started a legal battle in 1991. We went to the military court to prove ownership. And we spent about 12 years in front of the military court. And after 12 years, the military court decided against us. They said, we are not convinced of the documents that you have. So of course we knew that this decision was taken for political reasons. We brought this case to the High Court, to the Supreme Court, the highest court in Israel. And since 2002 until today, we are still struggling in the Israeli courts over now 30 years to prevent the land from being confiscated. So the first strategy that was used to take the land was the legal thing. Of course, after 30 years, although we spent a lot of money, a lot of energy, but we are still there and we did not give up. Side by side with the legal battle, they tried a physical pressure. They wanted to put us under physical pressure in order to give up and leave. So settlers started to attack us, came to the land, tried to open roads, to build a new neighborhood for settlements. They cut our trees, they damaged our water tank, and also they maybe some of you, of course, I was at Huda's house when the story happened with the destruction of our fruit trees in the valley, 2014. The military bulldozers came to the valley and destroyed all our fruit trees 10 days before the apricot harvest. So it was a big destruction for us. But with all the difficulties that we were facing, the physical pressure, we did not give up. We stayed and we continued the struggle. So they tried also to isolate us, to make it difficult for us to exist on the farm. So they blocked the road to the farm to make it difficult for us. So when we are traveling now from Bethlehem to the farm, we are not going the straight way that is about 10 minutes. from Bethlehem to the farm, we are talking about like 5 miles, 6 miles away. But we are traveling the other way through the villages, which is longer. And between the villages, we have sometimes what we call them the flying checkpoints. So the roads suddenly is blocked and people cannot cross. So back to the story of the destruction of the trees, we were glad that we planted new trees as a sign of hope, and many people came to support us in this tree planting campaign. Among them was American Jewish group who came and stayed and planted trees. This was a sign of hope for us. As I mentioned, the road was blocked with big rocks, as I said, to make it difficult for us and also other farmers to cross easily to their land. Now, the biggest obstacle that we might be facing very soon is the wall. The wall, as you all know, of course, is not being built for security reasons. It's actually built in order to take more land and to control more land for the expansion of the settlements. It is hard to live behind walls, and the wall is not even being built at the border between the West Bank and Israel, but it is going deep into the Palestinian areas, and in many places it is separating Palestinians from Palestinians and Palestinians from their own land. So here is where the farm is located between the settlement of Neve Daniel and the Palestinian village of Nahalin, where you see all the blue areas are settlements in our area, and this is where the wall is being built. Some of it is already finished, and they are now continuing to continue. They are continuing to build and to finish the wall, and to expand Route 60, the road that connects Jerusalem with Hebron. But on the way from Jerusalem to Hebron, there are many settlements that are built there, and they want to expand the road to make it easier for the settlers to cross from their settlements to Jerusalem, which means on the long run, even it's not mentioned or it is postponed, but the reality is that annexation might come soon, not by announcing it, but in terms of the facts that are being created. So, of course, a difficult political reality and all the pressure that we are having around that is making it difficult for the Palestinians. So, what to do in this very difficult situation when people are pushed to the corner, are having no hope for the future, all the roads are closed, the tunnel is becoming more darker and darker. So the normal three options that people might have in any conflict region, in any difficult situation, is whether to react in a, like being facing violence. So the response is also with violence, so with a violent reaction, or to sit down and wait for a political savior to come and help, or flee, run away from this situation. We were facing this reality. So what to do with what we are facing with land confiscation? Are we going to react the way that some people might react? No, we said with violence, people will create more violence, and violence will not give any solution to any conflict. So are we going to accept this unjust situation and wait for something or for a miracle to happen? Of course not, because sitting down, crying, and waiting, by doing that, we would become victims. And of course, sometimes we feel we are victims of this difficult situation, but becoming a victim means we cannot we cannot change our reality. We cannot do anything. So sitting down and crying won't make any difference. So that's why we said also no to the second option. And also to run away, we said also no, because we don't want to give up and run away from our situation and not face this challenge. So we said no to those three options. So what to do in this difficult situation? We started to say and to believe there must be another way of resistance, another way to go, and without violence. And when we said without violence, of course, it's not easy to think that way. So we had to fix ourselves. We had to to believe differently and to think differently. So before we started, what we call it now, the fourth way, we said four things that became our principles. Of course, acting nonviolently needs to refuse to be a victim. Very important to move ourselves out of this victim mentality in order to stand up and act instead of reacting, and to start acting in a different way. Nonviolent way of resistance needs also something that denies hatred. So we said we refuse to hate. Of course, it is easy said and difficult to practice in this difficult situation, because the normal reaction is to hate, but refusing to hate is difficult and needs a lot of energy and motivation. But with hatred, we said we would destroy ourselves, and we won't change our situation that way. The third thing we said, we call it the principle. We said we are acting differently, not because it is a strategy. No, it should become a way of life. It is based on our faith, our Christian faith, because believing in the scriptures um, is is giving us the power to act differently based on our beliefs. And fourthly, we said we are people who believe in justice, and we believe, although the way for justice is too long, too complicated, too difficult, but one day we believe the Son of Justice will rise again. So with those four principles, we were very motivated. Of course, like, again, it's easy said to be motivated in a situation that is dark, but our motivation based upon our inner strength that that give us the energy, the power to stand up and act nonviolently, and taking it as a way of resistance by overcoming evil, not with more evil, but with good, hatred with love, and darkness with light. And our slogan is we refuse to be enemies, which is a powerful message for us, a powerful message that needs first the transformation, to transform ourselves, to believe and to act differently, but also it's a way to transform the other and make him feel and asking himself, what am I doing here? So it's a way to transform ourselves and to transform the other, transform the enemy. And our slogan, we refuse to be enemies, which is a non-violent way of resistance, not by being passively. No, it's an active way of non-violent resistance. And with this principle, we started to call the farm the Tent of Nations Farm. And we started with new energy, with a life full of hope, although the situation is becoming more difficult. So we started saying we are able to make a difference, even in a difficult situation. The farm is located in what we call it Area C after the Oslo Agreement, which means the farm has no electricity, no water. We need a permission from the Israeli military authorities, and no building permits. But we said nothing is impossible. If there is a will be always a way. So for electricity, we installed a solar power system. For water, we are depending on rainwater collected in systems. So we are trying to collect as much water as we can to run the farm through the summer. We are not allowed to build on the ground. We started building under the ground. We started renovating existing caves. And of course, for us, it's not about building electricity or water. It's about showing, or let us say, proving to ourselves and showing other people that things are possible. Even in a difficult situation, we can change our reality. We might not see the fruits of the work that we are doing immediately, but as long as we are on the right track, we keep going, we keep looking forward. We became as let us say, like an educational environmental farm by starting to think about creative ways how to solve our problems with the wastewater. So we started recycling the wastewater to be used for irrigation. We started using also compost toilets, which in order to save water. And those are ways, of course, to help us overcome our obstacles, but at the same time, help us introduce this new way of living to our local community, because environmental issues are not being taught at school for kids. So children are growing up without learning that much about environment. So we try through what we are doing also to give a picture how to live differently, and at the same time to be environmentally friendly. So we started, after doing some renovations on the farm, developing the infrastructure, we started to say, life is receiving and giving. So we need to give what we received, to give this energy back, what we received through our way of nonviolent resistance, to introduce it also to locals as well as internationals. So we started developing some activities on the farm, first of all, to bring people together, to connect people with the land, but we wanted those people to go back home motivated. So we do every year a tree planting campaign. Today we planted 50 trees. So the idea of the tree planting is to help the farm to, let us say, to cultivate new land, plant more trees, which is a way to save the land from the danger of confiscation. We plant a tree to protect the environment, but we also plant a tree as a sign of hope for a better future and a sign of hope for peace and justice. We believe that peace will come not through a handshake between politicians. It's a process. It is like planting an olive tree that takes some years to grow and bear fruits, and also some years to have its roots connected to the ground, because for the first 2 years, it is very difficult for the tree to face the hot summers. So we need to water each tree by hand. But the moment the roots go deep into the ground, the tree can live for years. And this is how we can make peace, building it from the ground and up. We are also doing some activities with children. One of our programs is a children's summer camp. We invite children from the Bethlehem area, from refugee camps, Palestinian children. And you know that our children are traumatized, growing up in a difficult political reality. So we try to motivate them through activities like mosaic, paintings, music, theater. And the idea is for us is to let the children discover their talents, to let them focus on their positives, and to let them believe in themselves. I can do it. I can stand up. I can shape my future with my hands. This year, this is the first year that we did not run a summer camp because of the coronavirus. And we were sad because even in a difficult situation, difficult political reality that we are facing, even during the attack on Gaza, we had a summer camp, but this year we couldn't do it. And I hope that things will change for next year. We have a women empowerment project. We stopped it because of the pandemic. But we run this project usually in the village that is close to the farm, run by my wife, Jihan, who started this project to empower women in the village who do not have chances for education. And they do English classes, computer classes, agricultural training, first aid courses, other activities. And it's not about education, it is about empowerment. It's about like letting the people believe in themselves. You know, as many of us are sitting down and waiting for a change to happen. But I always say we are God's hands on this ground. We need to stand up and act. Nothing can be done for us while sitting and waiting. We need to become more active and do it. We usually have also different work camps. Also this year, it was very difficult because we did not have any work camp. We had to do all the work by ourselves. We run an educational harvest camp in June with the apple and the apricot harvest, in July the almond, in August the grapes, the figs in September, and the olive harvest in October, where we have many volunteers are coming from different countries, backgrounds, living together and working together. And the idea of having volunteers, of course, is very important because since we started to have international presence on the farm since 2002, we do not have any attacks from settlers. This year, we are facing another challenge, this time not with Israeli settlers, but with Palestinians who are Palestinian family from the village who is claiming that part of the farm is belongs to them. And it's a new story because we are owning the farm almost more than 100 years, and we did not have this problem before. So they came and attacked actually this cave which was used for the volunteers. We are trying to deal with this issue in the court, in the Palestinian court, but things are going too slow, and it is a big frustration for us. Maybe one of the reasons of the attack is actually the lack of volunteers and international presence, because this is the first year that we did not have any volunteer. We were expecting many volunteers to come and to stay between 1 week and 3 months. We had no guest groups this year. or the last group who visited the farm was came on the 5th of March, and since the 5th of March, we do not have any visitor group on the farm. This year, we were expecting about 15,000 people to come and visit. Last year, we had about 13,000 people who came to visit the farm. This year, more people were expected to come, but because of the pandemic, people could not come. Of course, like in this very dark time and very difficult situation, it is very difficult to think forward, because many people believe we live day by day and waiting for something to happen. But I always believe there there must be a better way, or a way for a better future, and we need a vision. We need to hang on with a vision that keeps us going, because without a vision we cannot continue. And our hope is one day, although the situation is very difficult, is to have an educational environmental center on the farm, to introduce the kind of farming, like alternative farming, also um, ways of how to collect water, how to filter the wastewater, solar energy, wind energy. All of that are important for a better future, are important for the children to grow up and learn something about that. It is a long way to go. We always invite people to join us, to back us, and to walk with us hand in hand to accomplish this vision, because I always believe together we can make a difference. Always together we can make a difference. We invite you to be part of what we are doing. I always say it's a struggle, and the struggle means it can be going on and on for years. I hope not, but the struggle for justice will always continue, not by itself, always with faith, with love and hope. With faith, love, and hope, our journey will continue like a farmer who puts his hand at his plow, and the moment he does so, he is not allowed to look backwards. So our journey will continue with faith, with love, and hope. We have a website, tentofnations.org, and I would like to ask you, and maybe also to send this message to your friends. As I said before, we we were expecting 15,000 people to come and visit this year, and I would like, if possible, like to receive during Christmas and the beginning of the year, maybe the new year, also to receive maybe 15,000 postcards at the farm. So if you like to join us, you can send us a postcard, or small greetings, or Christmas greetings, or solidarity greetings at this address: Tent of Nations Farm, Nassar Family, St. Peter's Crossroad 1, Nahalin, Palestine, via Israel. So I invite you to be part of that if you like. And at the end, as I said before, or in the beginning, the land where we are is the land of light. Even it's dark now, but because of the baby born king who was born in this little town of Bethlehem, and also it is the land of resurrection. It is the land of light and the land of resurrection. And we need your support to keep this light and the hope for the resurrection to continue as a message to other people in the world. So we invite you to be part of that, and we hope that you can bring it in your churches, in your communities, and at homes. So thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Daoud. That was really very, very moving. So thank you very much. Yeah. So let's have a. So I would like to now turn this over to Mark, and I know that people. Oh, let me see. I think that's it. Yeah, Mark. Yeah. Mark, I think you're unmuted. Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm here. I'm here, Mary. Okay.
Yeah, and a number of people have sent questions, and they went to
Yeah, I've
everyone,
got
so
'em.
we could hear them. Yeah, but I mean, everybody could see them too. I think that was wonderful.
So we got one question that I would imagine, Daoud, is from someone who is new to Tennis Nations, and it's wonderful that we've got someone who is just coming to us for the first time, which is terrific. I'm making that assumption because the question is, and I think it's a terrific question, and maybe it'd be an opportunity for you to say something about the whole issue of Christians in the Holy Land. For example, how many are there? What's the history of Christianity in the Holy Land and your own family? What's the situation of Christians now? And the question is, are you Christian? And how did you become a Christian? So maybe we could start with that.
Well, yeah, thank you for this question. Of course, like many people do not know that Palestinian Christians are existing, and many people, they think that they are converted from Muslims. So they mix being an Arab, that doesn't mean being a Muslim. And by the way, also being a Muslim, that doesn't mean being an Arab or is an Arab. The Palestinian Christians are existing from the beginning. Jesus was born in Bethlehem, and we are existing here since the whole story started 2,000 years ago. I always say the shepherds are the first ones who proclaim the good news, and since then the people of Palestine brought this message of hope to the whole world. So we are not being, let us say, converted by the missionaries that came to Palestine. No, we are existing from the beginning. And of course, the Christians were one day 20% of the population, are now becoming like a small minority in the Holy Land. About 1.5% are Christians today. And our problem of the Christian or the Palestinian Christians today is the immigration, because of the difficulties, the political reality, the economy, but also people are fearing of, let us say, of the religious fundamentalism. Like it's growing in our area. Let us say some people are starting to use religion as like it as a tool to get like their political demands or whatever, the political goals. So those are reasons for the Christians to leave. But of course, we always say, you know, we are witnesses in this country, and we should stay and we should keep this message to all people.
You
I
need
can't-
to unmute, Mark. You need to
I
unmute.
don't know how that happened. Okay, good. So, yeah, thanks, Daoud. I recall a wonderful statement from Bishop Yunnan, Munib Yunnan, who was the Lutheran bishop of the Holy Land until a few years ago. And someone asked him also, what's it like to be a minority in the Holy Land? And he said something really wonderful. He said, you know, I do not consider myself as a Christian as a minority. I am Palestinian. This is my country, and I'm not a minority in my own country as a Palestinian. He did say, however, that he felt that as a Christian, he had a special privilege and a special responsibility to bring the Christian message to the movement and to provide that kind of spiritual guidance and energy. And I think that that's very, very true about what the Christians in Palestine have brought to the movement, and what they've been able to articulate theologically and spiritually for all Palestinians. So the Christians are extremely important. It's not a question of numbers, although I don't think you mentioned this. The Christians are, as a group, are very much threatened in Palestine. In 1948, when the Zionists took over, the population, the percentage of Christians in Palestine was 20%, and the percentage now has dropped to less than 2% for various reasons. And so I think one hook, if I can use that, one important argument or way to bring the message of Palestine to the world at large and to the Christian world at large is to appeal to Christians all over the world to work to save Christianity in the Holy Land and to work to save the endangered Christians in the Holy Land. And that pulls people in and gets their interest. And then once they visit, the whole question of Christian, Muslim, Jew, you know, brown, black, or white disappears. But it has been, I think, for the movement an important factor. Okay, so another question I'd like to bring up next, because it helps us put people more in the picture just in terms of what's happening politically. Somebody asks, you had mentioned something about a wall, and so the question is a wall currently being built? Did I hear that correctly? And then someone added to that, yes, I think we need to see more specifically where the wall is being built in relation to tent of nations. So I know you had a map up before, Daoud, but can you talk with us a little bit more about what is actually happening with the construction of the wall, what that means in terms of Palestinians in the West Bank in general, and specifically the implications for tent of nations?
Well, thank you, Mark. Just to say something before about being a minority, you know, of course, like, you know, we are, as Palestinians, when we talk about numbers, Palestinian Christians, we are is a small minority, so we cannot ignore that. But being a minority, that doesn't mean being weak. It's not a weakness. No, it can be also a strength, because I always say, like, the disciples of Christ were also a small minority, but they managed to change the world. When Jesus was the Sermon on the Mount, he spoke about you are the salt of the earth and the light of the world, which means a small amount of salt can change the taste of the food, which means the minority can make a big difference. You know, so we can use it as a strength that we can change the situation. We of course, like, we are not saying like we will change the situation by tomorrow, but at least we contribute for a positive future. And that's why the Palestinian Christians, they should play a bigger role. Even the churches, also the Palestinian Christian churches, should play a bigger role in doing that, and you know, like in not just praying for justice, but also acting for justice. So we have to become more active in doing that. So anyway, back to your question, Mark, about the wall. Of course, like most of the wall is finished in the West Bank, and with the wall and the, let us say, the matrices of control, which means the bypass roads, the checkpoints, the West Bank will be divided into like three, let us say, homelands, three big homelands, in the north, in the middle, and in the south. And those homelands will not be connected with each other, so geographically, which means that passing from one place to another, we might have to cross through a wall or a checkpoint, or you know, or a fence, and which makes it difficult for us as Palestinians to have an independent state. Also economically, how could a state, let us say, survive without having resources, at the same time without having land and no borders? Now, specifically, when we talk about the southern part of the country, or southern part of Bethlehem, southwest, so almost the wall, like in some part is a fence, but in other parts is a wall. It's almost done around Bethlehem. So now what they are doing is they are expanding now Route 60 from Jerusalem all the way down to Hebron, and then they will finish that part of the wall, or let us say that is still not built in our area. Now, when the wall is finished, it would become more difficult for, let us say, specifically in our area, we are talking about 5 villages west of Bethlehem, let us say. So those people want access, have like an easy access from and to Bethlehem. Maybe they have to go through a checkpoint on daily basis. Maybe they have to wait an hour. And this situation will force many Palestinians who are living in the villages around Bethlehem to force them to voluntarily leave. So they will leave what's we call it area B or C, and then move to area A, because to get easier to their jobs, which means on the ground that the majority of area C would become empty, and the area A would become more or overpopulated. And this is what we are experiencing right now in the Bethlehem area. Almost you cannot, I mean, sometimes it takes you an hour to drive like 2 miles in Bethlehem, or 3 miles in the city. So people cannot handle this situation. It's overcrowded. You cannot build that much. Land is not under our control. And so let us say the cities are becoming like open air prisons for the Palestinians. So with your question is, the situation will get more difficult when all of that is finished, when the wall is finished. Yeah.
Thank you, Daoud. Here's another question. My understanding from the past is that the presence of international visitors at the Tent of Nations helped to reduce incidents of harassment. With COVID and the lack of visitors, has harassment increased?
Well, of course, like international presence is very important. And I said before, since we started to have international presence on the farm, since 2002, we don't have attacks from Israeli settlers, which was good. Now, of course, we got like demolition orders, cultivation stop orders, but the lack of internationals at the farm this year did not, let us say, did not give the let us say the open the road for the settlers to attack, because the settlers, we did not have a physical attack from settlers since 2002, but it created a new challenge for us, which is the new challenge that we are facing now with the Palestinian family that is from the village. I mean, we don't know what is the whole story behind it. Why now they are attacking, they attacked the farm? Why now they are claiming that part of the land belongs to them? You know, those are like open questions, but I think this would not have had happened if internationals were present at the farm.
Also, let me just add to that, though, we're talking about international visitors, but also a major factor, I think, has been the presence of the ongoing presence of international volunteers who are actually living on the land and are a constant presence there. And that, of course, has also disappeared now with the fact that people can't travel internationally. So would you say that that has also been, that's also a very worrisome issue at this point? And what have you been able to do to try to mitigate that and to deal with the fact that you have no international volunteers on the land right now, when in the past you've had anywhere from 5, 6, or maybe even a dozen internationals living constantly on the land?
Yes, yeah, of course, like the lack of the international volunteers also made it very difficult for us in terms of international presence, in terms of protection, but also in terms of like helping to do the farm work. This is something important that we need also to talk about, is where are the Palestinian volunteers? So this is something that we need also to talk about this issue. We have hundreds of thousands of young people who are unemployed or doing nothing, or just going around on the streets and have no plan for the day. So we need to integrate this energy of young people that maybe are frustrated because of the situation to do something positively. So it's a pity to say that nothing is being invested in that direction, also from like politically from the government. Also, not that much involvement is coming from schools. You know, of course, the pandemic is a big issue nowadays, but at least it is important to include or to introduce this subject, volunteering in the schools, so that children can grow up also offering, let us say, some of their free time helping other people. So this, you know, let us say this mentality or this thing should come back to our society. We lost it. Let us say 25, 30 years ago, it was totally different. Now we have a new generation of young people who do not think that much to get involved in the community. So that's why we need to work on that and introduce it more and more in the schools, in the school system too. It's a challenge.
Yeah, it's a really important point, and I know that it's been a major focus to reach out and to integrate and be part of the larger Palestinian community, certainly in the Bethlehem area, since the beginning of Tent of Nations. And so the summer camps has been one part of that. And I know that, and you have, and of course the women's center in Nahalin. And that's huge, and it's really important. And I know that it's really been in your heart and in your mind to connect and to be part of the larger Palestinian community. There was another question about the attacks on the local farmers and the local families recently on the farm, and you addressed that and you said we really don't know what prompted this, and we don't know, and of course it's very disturbing. But I think the point that you just made now about bringing Palestinians onto the land and to have really create the sense, the true sense, that Tent of Nations is part of the local community and not something on its own and an outpost sitting up on the hill. It's just incredibly important, and I think a real focus for the future. And these local attacks, whatever's prompting them, and it may be that just the stress of living under COVID and the stress of being under occupation causes people to do all kinds of bad and stupid things that work against themselves. We see that certainly in this country as well. So any efforts that can be made to continue to create connections in part of the larger community is, of course, critical.
Right. Yeah.
We have. Did you want to say anything about that before going to the next question?
Yeah, just to say, like, since the farm is located on the hilltop and surrounded by 5 settlements, which is, I would say, it is a strategic place to build a settlement. So, like, stopping that from happening, and like a struggle that is now 30 years old, and maybe the journey continues in that. So we managed to stop the settlements from being expanded in our area, which means like that indirectly we are not just saving or protecting the farm, but we are protecting the whole area, right, including like 11,000 people who are living in the village. And the village is surrounded from 3 sides with the settlements, and the only area that is left is our farm. So if we were not existing there, so the land would be confiscated, another settlement would be built there, which means the village would die sooner or later. So of course, many of the village people, they support and they know how important our presence on the farm. But again, we don't know what is the reason of the attacks. It could be like a small thing that, as you mentioned, some people they want just to act out of their anger or pressure or the situation, but it could be also bigger than that. We don't know yet.
Well, yeah, and of course, turning local indigenous people against one another is an old, time-honored method of colonial occupiers. So who knows what might be behind it, but that's what tends to happen and what we have to fight against. Here's a question coming from our US context. We have seen how our federal courts have been manipulated to serve political interests. Can you describe, I don't know if you can you describe how political interests shape the federal courts of Israel?
Well, of course, like the main idea, let us say, when we talk about the West Bank, is the main idea is like to take land as much as possible, to expand the settlements. And when we go legally, and we have this experience since now 30 years, of course, we went through the military court, but also we brought this case to the Supreme Court, to the highest court. So the highest court even did not say this is illegal. So they did not say, for example, the case will be dismissed because you are the owners of the land. So they, instead of ruling for justice, they just kept the struggle going on, and they moved it back to the military authorities. What I want to say is, of course, we expect the courts to be the courts for justice, but in a situation like that, sometimes it is really difficult in that way to act for justice. So they keep the struggle going, and to serve somehow the political system.
Okay. Yeah. There's a lot of good questions that have come in. When I was last in Palestine, asks one person, it appeared that Salafi Islam, in contrast to traditional Palestinian Islam, is somewhat hostile toward Christian Palestinians, and that was getting stronger. Have you experienced that? Is that still happening?
Well, like in every, let us say, religion, there are some people who are, trying like to let us say, not to be open with the others, like to make one step backwards and say, like, my religion is the solution. So, and we have this among Muslims and among Christians and among Jewish people. So, so of course, this is when I always say, when things are not going well with the situation, when people are looking for peace, but peace is not coming. So people, this will force them to get back one step backwards and put a wall in front of them and see themselves and say, we are the solution. Others are not. We are the ones. So they start to not see the other as a human, but also as a person that believes differently in a different way, but also has the right to be there. So yeah, we have this problem, but it is among all religions.
Yeah, thank you, Daoud, for your wisdom about that. It's obviously a critical question for all of humankind these days. And you make a good point that this is obviously not simply the problem of Islam. One questioner asks, have you experienced support for the idea of one state, one democratic state for all inhabitants of Palestine among Palestinians?
Well, like at the moment, many people do not let us say talk about this issue, like, let's say, generally speaking, because people are facing on daily basis difficulties to survive. Now, politically, many Palestinians, or we heard many promises. We heard about the wonderful peace that they are planning for. Many promises, but we did not see anything happening on the ground. So that's why many people are not interested anymore to discuss those questions about how the solution might look like. Well, like when you talk about a two-state solution, many people, they say it's gone because of the facts that are created on the ground in terms of settlements. We mentioned that, and so on. Now, when you talk about a one-state solution, where everybody is treated equally, and like two people living in the same land with equal rights. This sounds nice, but also practically it is not that easy to happen, because the discussion now in Israel is Israel wants to be a Jewish state, and a Jewish state cannot be democratic. A Jewish state cannot be a state like based on religion, but also let us say democratic. So that's why that's why many people they stopped raising this question, of course, because it's nice if it happens, but it is it is much more difficult than two-state solution to happen. You understand what I mean? So it is a dream, but it is not realistic.
Here's a question that's just come in that addresses the whole issue of what we're learning as a result of the pandemic. I'm wondering about the ways in which we might create a presence at Tent of Nations, as many of us have expanded our use of technology. For example, could there be classes offered by Palestinians from the Nassar family land that supporters could participate in from afar, and the other way around?
Well, yeah, it could be, of course, a way, but it's also like since it's a farm, and we try like to bring people. It's like learning by doing. It's sometimes very difficult and challenging to do things online because the better experience is to get there. But anyway, it's a good idea, and maybe this is something that can be done with schools in our area.
Yeah. Let's think about it, to be able to bring people right into the farm in real time. It's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
There, you may be familiar with the Environmental Education Center of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Jordan and the Holy Land. Have you had any connection with them, and would you be working with them in establishing your programs?
Yes, of course. We have it's in Tarita Kumi, and we are in touch with them. For us, it is like they have this center in the school itself. For us, what we want to do is let us say the practice. So the practice, not like it's not about having a new center. It's not about that. It's about how to get the students not just learning about environment as a theory, as a class of mathematics. No, it is the practices. It is to be in the field. It is to mix their hands with the soil. It's about learning about the different trees, different plants. It's learning about the different animal, connected to the land. I think about this idea because through our experience with the children's summer camps, although many Palestinians originally are coming from farmer families, we have a new generation that does not know that much about the land. It's not connected with the nature, and it's really difficult. Also with like garbage, sometimes like you see a lot of garbage everywhere. So children, like also not only children, like families, adults are not aware about that. That's why it's important not just to teach the theory, but also to practice the practice. So we wanted the children to come to the farm and learn and have this experience. Like last year when we talked with the children about the compost toilets. So some of the children did a study about how much water you use for the flushing toilets on daily basis, and they came up with a big number. So when the last day of the camp, when the parents came to to see their children performing, the children took their parents to the compost toilet to introduce to them how it works. And it was a shock, when they told them how much water they save with, like with using those kinds of toilets. I mean, like it's a way to educate to educate let's say the adults through their children. So that's why it should be a big investment in the new generation, because those are the leaders of the future.
Speaking of water, there's a question that came in earlier, which was, is it true that you have been denied access to public water as a Palestinian in Area C? And of course, the answer is yes. And can you say something about how, in terms of water as well as electrical power, that's been true from the beginning, and how you've made a virtue of that, and in terms of the philosophy of sustainable and renewable living?
Well, like in what is called Area C, which is under Israeli military control, like usually everyone has the right for utilities, services, water, electricity. So they always say you need to apply to get it, to the Israeli authorities. And we applied many times, but always our application was denied without any reason.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we could sit down and cry and get frustrated and start like to feel negative, to have this negative feeling. But instead of doing that, we channeled our frustration and invested this negative energy positively, and started to think about creative ways of getting water and having electricity. So we started like depending on rainwater for drinking, but also for using for agriculture. So we are collecting rainwater inside systems, and then we got this solar system for electricity. So those are alternative ways. Of course, those are the outcome of the negative energy that being invested positively. But also, it was a way for us to start thinking about the environment, about how much, about new ways, how to protect, somehow, how to protect the planet that God gave us to protect and to keep it for the new generation. So it's not just about solving the problem of electricity, which is one part, but the second part is to think beyond than that, and to make it as a step forward to learn more about how important to keep this environment and to keep this world that God created and gave us as a gift. And the gift should not just, we are not allowed to keep it for ourselves. We have also one day to give this gift to our children and grandchildren and pass it over to the new generation. So this is how it should work, I believe.
One questioner asks, you mentioned Palestinian children. How do you see people outside the West Bank attempting to get Israel to stop the detention of children in prisons? And I would also invite anyone else present today who's got information about how to connect with organizations that are working on that, to put that up on the chat box. So, for example, that's an important question.
Of course, yeah, there are many among the prisoners. There are also children, and even like 2 days ago, a child was killed by the military near Ramallah. So we have this on daily basis, and it's hard for the children. One is to grow up in this difficult situation because the children do not know what does it mean to live a normal life. And also, like when they are in prison, then they are treated in a difficult way. So this is a trauma. Like the children, yeah, the children are taking it inside and will affect also their life for, for the future. So yeah, we need many people to learn about what is really happening there in the prisons and the situation with the children there.
Yeah, and there are two, they're now up in the chat box. Google "No Way to Treat a Child." It's as Adam points out, it's an excellent effort, and it's being co-sponsored by, I think, by Defense of Children International and the American Friends Services Committee, and a lot of the local, the United States Christian and secular organizations are like Jewish Voice for Peace and Palestinian for U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights are supporting it. Also, the Defense of Children International Palestine, which Rifat Kassis is still very much involved with. Also, the Betty McCollum Palestinian Children's Rights Bill. You can find out about all of these things by going to the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights or Jewish Voice for Peace that are really helping with these campaigns. Okay, how are we doing for time, Mary? When do we need to move on and finish up with questions? We're handling a lot of questions, which is great.
I think it's great. Let's go for another 5 or 10 minutes. We will,
Okay.
just to let everybody know, we will have time for the links for where to send money. That will definitely be available.
Yeah, I'm going to
Don't worry.
pitch that at the very end as well.
Yeah.
Also, just to make, so be sure to tell us how to get financial support so we can share that information. Also, somebody asks, we're sorry that your visit to Texas was canceled. What's your visa status now, and will you travel again after the pandemic? Daoud.
Sorry, I didn't, I missed that.
We're sorry that your visit to Texas was canceled. Will you be traveling again after the pandemic?
Well, of course, yeah, very, very important for me. It is important, to deliver this message of hope, also in person, one thing, but also to be encouraged by many friends, so this is mutual. It is when I am traveling and being with people, so and coming out from a difficult situation, like I get this energy when I see people, when they appreciate what we are doing, for their support, for their prayers, so I come back full of energy to continue the work that I'm doing here, and the same story is also, we need also to make disciples. We need to get out and make disciples and spread out the good news. So it is a mutual thing. So as soon as the pandemic is over, I hope it's soon, I will come back to Texas and other places. I
We
promise.
will very much look forward to that, and to be able to come and visit you again as well.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Yeah, we all talk more and more about after the pandemic is over and after everything returns to normal. I think we have to keep in mind that this may take a long time, and back to normal may not be what we remember normal being, and that we have to really think a lot about what we're learning now about how we've adapted to these restrictions, and to see how much of that learning we can bring into the future with us as well. Obviously, it's very difficult that for so many reasons, especially for people under stress and people at risk, like Palestinians and others around the world, not to have the ability to get around and to have people visit. I think we really need to all put our heads together to think about, and some of those ideas will come up today, about how to find other ways using technology to be able to make those connections now, and not sit and wait for the pandemic to be over so we can all go back to quote normal. Speaking of that, one person asks, Daoud, have you and your family experienced trauma from the recent attacks?
No, it was like not a physical attack on us, but it was it was like excuse me, like destroying the cave. Of course, it was we were shocked because this is the first time that is happening to us, and again the question is why now? What is the reason behind it? Who is behind it? So many questions were in our minds, but also it was very difficult for us because it took us years to build something up, you know, and somebody is coming and destroying it easily. So it's difficult to do something positive, but it's easy to destroy it. Yeah. So this is the kind of situation we were in, and we are still in that. Yeah.
But your resilience and the resilience of your whole family in terms of experiencing attacks from all places and all quarters, from settlements, from the Israeli army, and now from neighbors, is awe-inspiring. It shows what kind of resilience can be had when people are under stress. But I think that's one reason why we have to be thinking a lot about how to continue to create the support for you. And this, I think, applies to all people living in Palestine, which we've been able to do with physical presence and with visits. In the absence of that, how can we continue to provide that support, which is so important, so that you can continue your work?
It was hard with the attacks because also they came in a time where our application was accepted for the re-registration of the land by the Israeli military authorities. So we started the process, and we were moving forward in that. So it was like we were very hopeful that things are going to, or the things are going to end very soon for our favor, and the problem with the land will be solved easily. So those attacks are coming or came during that time. So one part, we were very happy to move on with the registration process, but at the same time, like we like fell down with the stones that are on our road for doing that. So, and it came, what was like very sad too, that it came from Palestinians.
Yeah.
But anyway, as you said, we are not allowed to give up hope. We move forward, and we know that we are not alone.
Thank you, Daoud. And why don't we close the questions here and move toward wrapping up. It's very late at night for you, Daoud, and I'm sure you've got you've got Sunday tomorrow, which is wonderful, but you need to rest.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone. Yeah, thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Daoud. Thank you so much. So Beth.
Thank you, Daoud.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you so much.
Yes, Mary. I'm going to just say a few words about Friends of Tent of Nations North America, which is a volunteer group that came into existence in 2007. And actually 3 people on this call were very instrumental to its founding: Mark Braverman, Bill Mims, and Bill Plitt. Quaker, a Jew, and a Presbyterian. So see what they can do when they all get together, huh? They all traveled to the farm in 2006 and came back in 2007 to begin FOTANA, Friends of Tent of Nations North America. And we worked with a variety of partners to bring Daoud to the US to share his story twice a year. It's one of the things we do is organize the tours. And we've been in 25 states and spoken in over 500 venues, including churches, synagogues, mosques, and community peace groups, universities, seminaries, and high schools, touching the lives of over 4,000 people. In addition to the, and I'm going to share my screen again, and at least I think I am. There we go. So this gives you information about the contact information that somebody had asked about for Friends of Tent of Nations, both a website and an email address. So in addition to the tours, we're involved in a number of things, and I encourage you to visit the website just to see what some of those activities are. We do have 3 or 4 books available for sale, and they're great books to share with others, to tell the story. There's also a cookbook put together by the women in the village of Nahalin with the assistance of Jihan, Daoud's wife, and a poetry book by the women as well. And those are all for sale on the website if you wish to purchase them. We do maintain an email list like a lot of organizations. We don't send things daily or monthly, but generally 4 times a year, maybe an update about the farm. It's also a way, if you put your name on our email list, that you would be apprised if there were a special request for some kind of action from you, such as writing a congressional representative or someone from the State Department. If there's an emergency, then Daoud works with us to put together what the request would be that would be sent out via our email list. And so that might be a reason that you would like to be on that list. And then everybody's been talking about volunteering, of course, and so that's a really important thing once things become possible for that sort of thing again. If you have grandchildren, children, you yourself, would like to volunteer for a week or longer, that's an important way of supporting the Friends of Tent of Nations, and the traveling, going to see and coming and returning to tell the story. The financial donations, if you wish to make a contribution to the farm, the way to do that is to either go on the website and do it via PayPal, or to make out a check to FOTANA, and that money then will be sent on to the farm. And you can see the address there. And we'll send some of this information out again in a follow-up email. I think Mary plans to send something, and that will include how you can access the recording and some of this other information again. And then don't forget Daoud's request to send postcards. I'm always struck by the power of stories and the firsthand accounts that come from people having gone to see and returning to tell other people what they have seen. It's a witness, and bearing witness is so important in this time. Eddie Glaude, an African-American scholar, exploring the life and contributions of James Baldwin, African-American writer and activist, says it well for me. Today, our task remains the same. No matter the difficulty of the magnitude of the challenge, some of us must become poets, but we all must bear witness. So on behalf of Friends of Tent of Nations, again, thank you to Kairos Puget Sound and to all of you for joining us today. And I'll turn it over or back to Mary at this point.
Thank you so much, Beth. That was quite helpful. And as you said, we will send out notices to everybody about this in email. I'm going to ask Huda now to make a few remarks. She's prepared them. Thank you, Huda. She's taking her mask off.
Yeah. Well, You heard Daoud quote Jesus Christ saying to his disciples, "You are the light of the world, and you are the salt of the earth." In addition, when Jesus used the parable of the leavening of the bread, he implied that his disciples were the leaven itself. Watching my mother and my aunt making Arabic bread, pita bread, as we call it here, I saw the small amount of yeast being mixed into a large amount of flour and water. And this was mixed in a large bowl, kneaded, and then covered with a blanket to preserve the warmth. And then you wait for some long hours while the dough grows. I strongly believe actually that you, all of you here, and yet some, are the leaven that Christ spoke about. You are the ones who can reach your clergy, to talk with them, to help them see and understand what the Palestinians are going through, and to speak with confidence from the pulpit to influence others. Let your leaven make a strong impact, to spread the word, to engage people, to correct false impressions, to speak about the injustice to Palestinians, in which we are actually all complicit, and to enlighten our legislators above all. Let your leaven make a strong impact on your clergy. Urge them to preach about the Palestinians and help them in their effort to do so. You can organize a group that focuses on who the Palestinians are and what they're going through, what they're capable of in the arts, in academia, in farming, in literature, in medicine, etc., and how they're living under a brutal system of occupation. And should you ever take a trip over there, or if you've already taken one, help people see what kind of a life Palestinians are living, how they cope with so little, and how their spirit of sumud, steadfastness, keeps them going from day to day, from year to year, and then come back and tell about what you saw and heard. So let your leaven start a pen pal mission for young people in your church. Include regular news in your church newsletter. Make it possible for your church to create an ongoing connection with a Palestinian organization in the occupied territories or East Jerusalem or Gaza. And I can provide you with names and contact information for schools, hospitals, community organizations, peace organizations, agricultural organizations, artists organizations, etc. Can you think of other ways to be the leaven in your church? Let us know about them. So this Christmas, I urge you to seriously consider your leavening gifts to Palestinians through your churches and all the other groups that you belong to. What a stunning Christmas gift this will be for the Palestinians. And if you need encouragement, do call us to help you make your leavening gift a reality for the Palestinians and share with us what you've done. Go out and grow your message with confidence and with God's blessing.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Huda. That's inspiring. Very inspiring. So I'm going to close us in prayer. I'm going to read a poem by Mahmoud Darwish, famous Palestinian poet who died a few years ago. And then we will stay on the line with the Zoom for a couple people who I know want to speak with Daoud. And Daoud, you can say when you have to go off and do other matters. So anyway, I want to thank everybody very much for this most informative sharing and to be able to listen to Daoud. It was just really fantastic. And thank you, Mark, for handling the Q&A in such a thoughtful way. Thank you, Beth. Thank you, everyone. So the poem by Mahmoud Darwish is entitled, Think About the Other. When you are making your breakfast, think about the other. Don't forget the food for the doves. When you are making your wars, think about the others. Don't forget about those who make peace. And when you are paying your water bills, don't forget those who drink from the clouds. When you are returning to your home, think about the others. Don't forget about those who live in tents. When you are sleeping and counting the stars, think about the others. There are some who can't find a place to sleep. When you are giving your spirit a place to fly, think about the others. Think about those who lost their right for words. When you are thinking about the others, the distant others, think about yourself and say, I wish I were a candle in the dark. Thank you, Mahmoud.